Andrew had always believed that love was supposed to feel magical, pure, and perfect, but unfortunately for him, his love life had never been anything close to perfect. In fact, Andrew's entire teenage existence revolved around one single person, Ramona. To Andrew, Ramona wasn't just a girl from school. She was a dream, an obsession, a fantasy he had built inside his mind for years. Every time she walked through the hallway, Andrew felt like the world slowed down. Her smile alone could send his heart racing like a runaway train, and he imagined thousands of scenarios where he would finally gather the courage to confess his feelings to her. But reality was cruel, and Andrew was painfully aware of it. Ramona was popular, beautiful, confident, and surrounded by attention from everyone. Andrew, on the other hand, was shy, awkward, and often the invisible guy standing in the background. Despite this painful imbalance, Andrew refused to give up hope. He spent years dreaming about the perfect moment when Ramona would finally notice him. Unfortunately, life had a twisted sense of humor. Instead of romantic success, Andrew's teenage years were filled with humiliating experiences that constantly reminded him just how far he was from being the kind of guy Ramona would want. One particular day changed everything. It started like any normal school day, but Andrew had decided that enough was enough. He was tired of hiding his feelings. His heart pounded as he walked toward Ramona, rehearsing the words in his head over and over again. Every step felt heavier than the last, like he was marching toward a moment that would define the rest of his life. His palms were sweaty, his throat dry, but he pushed himself forward. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. But fate had other plans. Instead of delivering a romantic confession, Andrew ended up in one of the most embarrassing situations imaginable. Through a series of awkward misunderstandings and bad timing, his attempt to impress Ramona collapsed into a humiliating disaster. What made it worse was that everyone seemed to notice. Whispered laughter followed him through the halls, and Andrew felt like the ground itself should swallow him whole. Ramona didn't reject him directly, but she didn't need to. Her indifference said everything. Andrew returned home feeling defeated, convinced that he had ruined his only chance. But life was far from done with him yet. Because just as Andrew's hope for Ramona began to fade, another girl unexpectedly entered his life, a girl who was the complete opposite of everything he had imagined. Her name was Anemone. If Ramona represented elegance and perfection, Anemone represented chaos. She was confident, rebellious, and completely unapologetic about who she was. Where Ramona seemed distant and idealized, Anemone was bold, flirtatious, and dangerously unpredictable. Their first real interaction happened almost by accident. Andrew found himself caught in a situation where Anemone started paying attention to him, something he wasn't remotely prepared for. Unlike Ramona, Anemone didn't treat Andrew like he was invisible. Instead, she seemed amused by him, fascinated even. She teased him, flirted with him, and slowly began pulling him into her world. For Andrew, this attention felt both exciting and terrifying. He had spent so long dreaming about Ramona that he never considered what it would feel like to have another girl actually show interest in him. And Anemone didn't just show interest, she overwhelmed him with it. Her energy was intoxicating. She dragged him into situations he had never imagined himself being part of, from reckless parties to risky decisions that constantly pushed Andrew outside his comfort zone. At first, Andrew believed he could handle both worlds. In his mind, Ramona was still the ultimate goal, the perfect love story waiting to happen. Anemone, meanwhile, felt like an unexpected adventure, thrilling but temporary. But emotions are rarely that simple. The more time Andrew spent with Anemone, the more complicated everything became. She wasn't just wild and rebellious, beneath her bold personality was someone who genuinely cared about him. She challenged him, mocked his insecurities, but also pushed him to grow in ways Ramona never had. Yet Andrew couldn't shake the fantasy he had built around Ramona. Every time he saw her, those old feelings rushed back. The same nervous excitement, the same impossible dream. And when circumstances unexpectedly brought him closer to Ramona again, Andrew found himself trapped in a dangerous emotional triangle. Suddenly, he was living the exact situation he had once fantasized about, having two girls in his life. But instead of feeling lucky, Andrew felt confused, overwhelmed, and increasingly dishonest. Because the truth was simple. He didn't fully understand his own heart. Ramona still represented the dream he had chased for years, the perfect image of love he had imagined since childhood. But Anemone represented something real. Something messy, unpredictable, emotional, and alive. And Andrew was about to learn that choosing between fantasy and reality would come with consequences he never expected. The deeper Andrew became entangled between these two very different girls, the more his life spiraled into chaos. Secrets began piling up. Small lies turned into bigger lies. Situations that seemed manageable at first suddenly became explosive. Andrew kept telling himself he could fix everything before it got out of control. But life had other plans. And the truth was slowly catching up to him. Because love triangles rarely end peacefully, especially when honesty disappears and emotions run wild. Soon, Andrew would face confrontations, heartbreak, jealousy, and moments so awkward and painful that he would wish he could rewind time and start over. But the biggest lesson was still waiting for him. A lesson about love. A lesson about self-respect. And a lesson about the difference between the person we think we want, and the person who truly sees us. And when the final truth finally exploded into the open, Andrew would realize that growing up sometimes means accepting that the perfect love story you imagined was never the real story at all.